Ladies, welcome back to Mea Culpa. It's so good to see my two faves. I've had it podcast host. I have Jen, and then of course I have Angie Pumps. We have so much to talk about. There's so much going on. The hour goes by too quick, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So ladies, the so-called big beautiful bill. If I turn on the television, which I'm really trying to stay away from, but anytime you turn it on, that's all anyone's talking about, the big beautiful bill. That big beautiful bill is going to slash Medicaid and bloating the deficit by trillions of dollars. Some say 3.5. Elon Musk goes up and says it's more than 5 trillion. When a bill this brutal passes with a smile, what does it say about where we are as a country?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I call the big beautiful bill the big heaping pile of dog shit, because that's what it is a heaping pile of dog shit and cruelty. But what it says about the country is that they are fine electing politicians that do not execute what the public wants. This bill is underwater with the public, double digits across the board. Even Fox News's own polling has it underwater, double digits. And here's the biggest problem about the Medicare / Medicaid. Many Americans don't understand, like in our state, Medicare is called Sooner Care. That's what it's called. So they're hearing on the news that Medicare is going to be cut, but they don't understand that Sooner Care is funded by Medicare. And so if you go state by state and look at what each of these states call the citizens who are on this government program for healthcare, it's oftentimes not called that. And so it's just a double layer of hoodwinking from the fiscally conservative MAGA Christians. And that's just something at the epicenter of this is these people have weaponized their Christianity to bring in the MAGA base. Meanwhile, they're doing the opposite of what the faith is supposed to do, which is help the needy, help the sick, help the poor. So this is just a travesty of the highest order.
Right. I mean, it's like I always used to say to my pal Jerry Falwell and other evangelicals, I always used to say, I don't understand how they could take the position that they're taking while holding a Bible. I said, isn't the general notion supposed to be what would Jesus do? Right. In order to make a determination on, do you think that Jesus would cut Medicare, Medicaid, SNAPs, government assistance for the neediest? Or do you think that he would say, yeah, let's keep that and maybe ask those who have more than what any human being on this planet should have, more than what they could potentially consume or spend in 100 lifetimes, even if you spent like a complete and total animal, more than 100 lifetimes? Don't you think Jesus would say maybe they could contribute a little more?
Well, absolutely. In the Bible, it talks about guarding against the accumulation of wealth. And what I think that these MAGA Christian nationalists, they wanted Project 2025. This bill basically gives it to them, because what we're not talking about, because people aren't as interested, because it's not going to take food out of their mouths and healthcare from them, is the fact that it undermines the judiciary and it consolidates power in the executive branch, which is what Donald Trump has always wanted. So my concern when I look to the future is, are we ever going to get rid of this party? Because they are governing, easy for me to say, governing in a way that says they never plan to leave. They don't plan on ever ceding power. And again, that's part of Project 2025.
Wow.
She just flipped me off.
Meanwhile, we're literally sitting here right now watching millions, and I mean millions, they say up to 17 million Americans, the most vulnerable, children, the elderly, the disabled, the disadvantaged, literally get gutted from healthcare coverage. Have we become so numb that cruelty has morphed into policy branding?
Yes, and I think this has been a play since the Reagan era. It didn't just start with Trump. The demonization of the poor started in the Reagan era, and that's when tax cuts for the rich dramatically took place. You may remember the most famous Democrat who executed the largest expansion of American prosperity and the American middle class was FDR. And he served so many terms, and he was so successful, and the programs were so wildly popular with the public that when the Republicans got back in, they put the amendment in that you could only serve 2 terms because they realized, oh shit, people really like it when government works for them. This really works. This is too popular. We're never going to get power again if the Democrats can do this over and over and over again. So Ronald Reagan cuts taxes on the rich and then at the same time starts demonizing the poor. And there's all these tropes that go around. Poor people are lazy. Poor people are playing video games on their mother's basement. And here's the fact of the matter, and your viewers know this. The fact of the matter is Michael Cohen, Pumps, and Jennifer Welch put in just as many hours as the worker at 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven worker isn't lazier or less ambitious. Whatever their life journey was, that led them to that job. And as a society, do we want people to go to work and come home feeling dignity? That maybe this isn't my dream job, but at least I can have health insurance, I can pay my rent, I can buy my dog some dog food, and my child can go to daycare. But we don't value that. So what do? We give the wealthy a super big tax break. And think about how fucked up this is, Michael Cohen. Jeff Bezos barely pays any taxes, yet he uses so many more of the services that the American federal government and the American taxpayer funds. Streets. Who builds all the streets? We do, the American taxpayers. Amazon trucks are all over the place. So he doesn't have to have a storefront. So he doesn't have that overhead anymore. So who pays for the infrastructure that makes Jeff Bezos a man worth $400 billion? The American taxpayer. We subsidize him. We subsidize the Walmart family because they don't pay their workers a livable wage, many of them on SNAP, on food stamps, on Medicare, because we don't demand that we pay them a livable wage. So the American public has been indoctrinated to demonize the poor, worship the rich, and subsidize these billionaires and not realize the reason we can't have nice things isn't because of immigrants. It isn't because of 7 trans athletes in the NCAA. It's because of these greedy billionaires. That's why.
Yeah, but what's the point then to buy dog food for your dog so Christine Ohm could shoot it? I mean, I can't. I just can't. I can't get past that. And
I can't
shooting
either.
So I have a hard time. You know, it's not
Cricket. The
that I
dog's name
want.
was
It's not,
Cricket.
honestly, it's not that I want to dislike her. I really don't want to dislike anybody. I just have to. I can't understand taking an animal, putting them into a ditch because they're barking and shooting it. Now, I'm not like the greatest of dog lovers. I don't have a pet. I did it as a child, but I don't have a pet now. I haven't had a pet since, oh my God, since I was like 18 years old, over 40 years now. But still, because a dog is barking, you take the dog, you put the dog into a pit and you shoot it. I mean, I'm just trying to think to myself, you know, is this the barbarism and the cruelty, of course, that's coming out of this administration? Is this the barbarian sort of mentality and the cruelty that we see now happening to human beings, the ones who are disappeared and sent to an internment, a concentration camp, so to speak, in Venezuela? Right? I mean, is this really, or El Salvador, is this really what we're talking about? To the Panamanian jungle? Or now we're not even sending them overseas. Now it's off to Alligator, to the Alligator Alcatraz, located in the Everglades of Florida.
Michael, I want to ask you what your thoughts were because we've discussed it. They have merch for Alligator Alcatraz, and they're all wearing their merch, and they're giddy. They're happy about it. They think it's funny. Trump's like, yeah, we're going to put him in there. Then we're going to teach him how to escape. And alligators are fast. I mean, it makes no fucking sense. But what on what level of humanity, if you can even be on the level where you are willing to put people without due process, and every time they talk about them, it's like, well, they're criminals and murderers. And it's like, no, they're not. We don't have any information to support that. We have information that says 85% of these people have no criminal record, but you're putting them down there. These people love their kids. They want to go to work. They have friends. They don't want anything more than anybody else. They're
Sure.
trying to do better, but they are fucking giddy about it. And they're
Yeah, I
buying
have a real
merch.
problem with that, with the merch for Alligator Alcatraz, with the head of the crocodile. Let me say this, because again, as somebody who sat next to Trump for a decade and a half, I don't know who it is as an enabler around him that's whispering this bullshit into his ear.
Steve
And more
Miller.
importantly, well, Steve Miller's but one. There's more than one person whispering this stupidity into his ear, because I never saw this sort of cruelty, this human cruelty coming out of Trump when I was in the inner circle. Why they're doing it, I don't know. Let me just push back a tiny bit and turn around and say some of the people that are being rounded up or have been rounded up are certainly criminals. But where I take total offense to what this administration is doing is they are casting each and every person that they round up, the child, the young woman holding her baby, the elderly, every single person that they claim that they are grabbing, they claim to be a murderer, a rapist, a gang member, a drug dealer, and so on. Because here's the thing. Go back to World War II. Go back to the Third Reich. Why were they able to just basically walk up to another human? Why were the Nazis able to just walk up to someone simply because they're Jewish or they were a gypsy and shoot them in the head and literally toss them, leave them on the ground like the way you would throw away a piece of gum that has no flavor? And the reason is because they dehumanized Jews. You call them vermin. You call them rats. You make them less than human.
The
so that
enemy
you can
from
do
within.
Mhm.
right. This is exactly what they are doing with these individuals, with these non-documented migrants. And yet, the funny thing, many of us have come into contact with non-documented migrants many times in our lives. If you are in, for example, the construction industry, you employ these individuals because they happen to be good. They're not concerned about getting up on top of a roof. It's 90 or 100 degrees in order to put the tar, to put the under tarmac underneath the, for the roof. They're not afraid of the heights. They do what they need to do, and they're actually skilled. And if they're not skilled, they learn that skill very, very quickly on how to do it well. And this is what also keeps the price down in our construction. If you own golf courses or land and you need people to tend to your property, to your land, I don't see white or black or brown American kids saying, you know what I'm going to do for the summer? I'm actually going to do landscaping. All right. I just don't see it. Right. I also don't see those white, brown, or black kids turning around and saying, you know what I'm going to do for the summer? I'm going to go pick strawberries day in and day out. I'm going to go pick blueberries day in and day out. And I'm going to earn $1 for every box that I end up filling of strawberries and blueberries. Right. I just don't see it. So now we're going after people, by the way, who I think, if I'm not mistaken, contribute like $90 billion to our economy. They do pay taxes. So this notion that they are less than human, that they are scourges off of our tax dollars, it's simply not true.
It's a distraction because the parasites are the billionaires. they are the parasites. That is the parasitic component to this economy. And back to your point about construction sites, my real job, I'm an interior designer and I have been for over 25 years. So I'm on job sites all day, every day. And I'll tell you the difference between immigrant labor and American, white people labor. The immigrants show up early, they stay late, they're fast, they take about a 30-minute little siesta, and then they're right back on the job site and everything is cleaned up and tidy. And then you get the white American plumber that comes in who's smoking, bitching, whining, complaining, I just can't, I don't know if I can work under these conditions. What's going on here? Just no gratitude. They're not grateful. But here's a component we need to talk about immigrant labor, that there's a moral shortcoming within that too. Americans have no problem exploiting immigrants for cheaper labor. So there is a dehumanization existing prior to Trump's mass deportation plan. We all, it's a part of a white person's American experience. Oh, we'll get the Mexican painting crew because they'll be cheaper. We are already exploiting them prior to see them getting dehumanized. And I think that starts the dehumanization process. That's why you want to live in a society that favors collectivism, where nobody is left behind in an economy, and that everybody gets paid a livable wage. There's no exploitation of labor, because when you exploit people's labor, you are a part of the process that dehumanizes them.
I mean, just think of it. We've been doing it as this country. By the way, the world has been doing it. I mean, the Pharaoh did it to the Jews to build the pyramids. America did it to both the Irish. They did it to the Asian to build the railroads. Right? New York, we did it in order to build, skyscrapers going back into, the late 1800s. We've been exploiting immigrant labor forever, because you're right. Once you're here and once you're established, it's almost like the after one generation, you take on that sort of air. I ain't doing that shit. That's migrant work, right? I'm going and I need to do more, we'll call it, white collar type work. No more blue collar work for this guy.
Yeah, and I think that we have to understand the immigrants, the reason why they're so eager to do this work and even be exploited by their wages is many of them are escaping horrible conditions where they couldn't have a family, where they couldn't make a sandwich safely and go to the park on a Saturday for a couple hours with their kids and push them in a swing set. Many of them are refugees. They're not criminals. Maybe the one crime they have is they came over here illegally, but these aren't criminals. The criminals run the government. Right. The criminals are in the White House. And so there's a gratitude.
The criminal is my interior decorator who charged me 35% more on top of what they overcharged me for the piece of furniture I bought.
Oh, I charge 45%.
I was gonna say, you're getting off cheap.
Oh, they said, it's funny because she said that I got a good deal.
Yeah, you did, because I would have charged you 10% more, Michael Cohen, and wouldn't have felt a thing about it.
Ooh, that hurts.
But the reason they have so much gratitude to do this work is because it is an opportunity. Yep. They have opportunity. And that is one word that we've always said, an adjective to describe the United States of America, is opportunity. And what Trump is doing, all the fuckery that he's doing, one of the worst things he's doing, aside from all the evil shit, is damaging the American brand. You can no longer think, just in the 4.5 months of Trump 2.0, you no longer think of America being synonymous with opportunity. Mm-hmm. That's gone. He's killed that. He's killing it every day when we watch the news. That's gone. So the damage to our brand as a country, to our culture, it is receding at such a rapid rate. And I believe this, Michael Cohen, I want to get your opinion on this. I think the MAGA popularity is completely exaggerated on these social media sites that are owned by Trump sycophants and kiss asses. Like,
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Did you go to the No Kings March?
I was asked by law enforcement to avoid going, simply because they were afraid. at the time there was the shooter and nobody knew whether it was an individual isolated event, and that obviously me walking in there would create an attention. And if there was we'll call it a copycat or somebody that was working in tandem, that I could be putting others' lives in jeopardy. And so against my desire, I refrained from going. I watched it. I was part with Lev Parnas as we were doing it live, together on Substack. But no, I did not physically go. But to answer your question with it, MAGA is real. And the
No, I believe
number,
that.
yes, and the number is real. In fact, I think the number of MAGA is greater than the number that's even reported. I think you have a whole group of people. They won't call themselves MAGA because of the stigma that's attached to it. Today, there's a statement that not all Republicans, not all racists are MAGA, but all MAGA are racists, right? So they don't want to be stigmatized as being racist. So I believe that the number is actually bigger.
Embarrassed MAGA support.
Right. They will vote straight up and down that MAGA line. They just don't wear the hat. They're not going to carry the MAGA flag or, wear the Trump fight shirt. They won't do that, but they will vote in line across the board. Can I go back for a second to this big, beautiful bill? Because it isn't a budget. I really think that the big, beautiful bill is like Project 2025. It's a manifesto. Let me ask Pumps this one. What do you think this bill really says to working class Americans, especially those who are still clinging to the illusion that Trumpism protects them?
See, okay, I have a two-part answer. Number one, in reality, they will realize their rural hospitals are no longer active and have shut down. They will realize that they are making less money because they are having to pay more taxes. They will realize that their dollar is not going as far. But I also think, I'm the optimist in the two of us, because part of me is like, these people are going to understand that they are getting fucked. They're going to understand it because their paycheck's going to be smaller. Prices are going to be higher. They're not going to have schools to send their kids to. They're not going to have access to hospitals. But then I see Donald Trump on Live Social says, the economy is the best it's ever been in the world. And I honestly believe that these people that are triple Trumpers, they think, well, he says it is, so it must be. Like, they do not believe their eyes and ears, so they believe what he tells them. And you've got Fox News reinforcing that. Well, it's going to increase the deficit, but we've got to do this because of Joe Biden. And Joe Biden did this, and, the GDP is down. We're losing more jobs than anticipated, but that's all Biden's fault. And I think these people will believe it. So I don't.
So whose fault is that, Pumps? Is it our fault for not putting out a retort in terms of what the reality is? Do you guys know what the U.S. GDP was for 2024?
No.
I know it shrank, but I can't remember the number.
It's $27 trillion. We're 2.5 times greater than the second economy in the world, China. We're 2.5 times their size. And that was, by the way, under Joe Biden. So, and I don't say it to make this into a test. Most people don't know. Why the hell would anybody care other than Michael Cohen, who doesn't fall asleep? And I'm sort of reading all innocuous, stupid shit. But $27 trillion, the biggest economy that the world has ever seen by a multiple, 2.5 times the size of China. So how can he turn around and blame Joe Biden for America is in the toilet? America was not in the toilet. America's not in the toilet today either, by the way, right? But the notion that under the Biden administration that America was a failure, we weren't respected, that we were we were falling apart, that we were on the brink of bankruptcy. None of that is true. Yeah, we have a massive deficit in this country. So you think that the way to get us out of our debt situation is to add $5 trillion to our debt? I don't think so.
So I have something to say about you laid out using facts why what the GDP was and how successful Joe Biden was with that. Joe Biden's failure is the following. Trump is very good at bullshit optics politics. Every day he has the cameras following him everywhere. He gaslights nonstop, but he's constantly promoting all of the stuff that he's doing it in real time and putting spin on it. Biden silently had all the smartest people around him, all the smartest economists, was grinding, and just assumed that people would feel the difference. And meanwhile, MAGA and their gigantic, oversized media echo chamber is megaphoning that Biden is senile and he is a failure and all of these policies are failure. And Biden didn't govern and take a victory lap at the same time. And in the post-Trump American, I'm talking about post-2016, the lesson that Democrats need to learn is that you have to govern and victory lap at the same time. Because of these, the information delivery system is completely different than in the 90s or the early 2000s when we went to work, came home, popped on the news, figured out what was going on, and then rinse, repeat, and went back. We're constantly updated all day, every day. I find myself, Michael, not doing anything and involuntarily opening up Instagram or Twitter. And I'm like, why did I even just open this up? It's like a tick now. So if I have that, you have that. I know you've got that because of our jobs, we have to stay, abreast of the news. But the Democrats have got to learn to walk and chew gum. You're going to have to fight for good legislation and victory lap and think about optics all the time. And that is the one imprint, besides all this evil fuckery that motherfucker has left in this country. That's the one thing the Democrats need to learn, is to be in a permanent campaign at all times. We have to be in a permanent campaign cycle, and we have to just browbeat the fuck out of these people all the time.
Sure, and use simplicity in doing what you're talking about. 3-word slogans. America deserves better, right?
Trump is senile.
Tariffs are taxes, right? Consumers pay tariffs, right? Support our veterans. Things like that, Medicare for all, right? Things like that. You got to use 3 words, and everybody has to get on the same goddamn page.
That's right.
Everybody. You can't have Michael Cohen talking about, one thing, and I've had it podcast with, the two of you out there talking about something completely different. We all need to every single day be on the same message. Tomorrow will be on your message, but today be on this message because it's relevant. So, speaking about your I've Had It podcast show, which is fantastic. Your show actually thrives on calling out the absurd. So do me a favor, tell my listeners, how do we make the gutting of Medicaid go viral enough for people to actually give a shit?
That's a great question, Michael.
You know me.
Because we're competing on social media. You're competing with viral moments against cats, dogs, now AI. I mean, I spent a good 15 minutes the other day, Pumps and I did, watching French bulldogs do a diving competition. It was all AI. And we sat there and giggled and laughed like a couple of old hens. But I think that, a sleekly messaged, and some of these are going to be somewhat sad, but I think what's going to happen when people realize what they don't realize, like in Oklahoma, half of Oklahoma citizens are going to lose their Sooner care because they don't realize it's called Medicare.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. And you can go by, I don't know what it's called in New York, but I doubt it's called Medicare. And so this is going to be, some really smart Gen Z millennials that are quick at doing, these types of reels that message this. I do believe that the left is starting to penetrate into the media ecosystem. I can feel it. I can feel some tailwinds and what we're all trying to build. But it has to be relentless and nonstop. And I don't know how you make something like Medicare go viral. I don't have the answer to that.
Michael, I want to tell you, and it may be happening where you are, but I was watching an NBA basketball game because we're Oklahoma City Thunder fans. And
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer was on CNN.
Take it, Knicks. Suck it, New York Knicks.
So I'm watching her on CNN and flipping back and forth. They have a commercial. Call your senator to support the big, beautiful bill, which, you know, your 3-word deal. It says no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, which are lies. That is not in the bill. So they're lying to them right now, and they're not going to know this until they get their checks and they go in and say, well, it said you taxed my tips or you taxed my.
You know what it reminds me of? When you're a kid and you don't study for an exam. You know, you're too busy playing a video game that your parents just got you on one of those like Telstar arcades or on Atari or something like that. And you say, fuck it, I don't give a shit, right? You know, if I do well, I'll do well. If I'm sure I'll pass, all right? And then there's a period of time between the time that you return the test to the teacher and you get back your grade, right? Now, you could bullshit yourself and say, yeah, I did great. There comes a day of reckoning when the teacher's walking around, hands you the piece of paper and says, see me after class. The same thing, that day of reckoning, is going to show up when ultimately, whether it's going to be the tariffs that deal with China and you're paying 2, 3, 4 times the amount for every single item. There's going to be a day of reckoning when you go to buy your strawberries or your blueberries and that little carton of blueberries is $25 instead of, say, $7. There's going to be that day of reckoning when people turn around and they say, wait. Why is this so expensive? Did they make a mistake? And you're like, no, it's called tariffs. The other part is called, there's no undocumented migrants there to pick your strawberries. And so now we're paying full labor wage for whatever we can finally get somebody out into the fields to do it. Then they'll understand that they've been lied to. But we're lied to every single day by the media, not by us, by independent media, but by mainstream and cable news media. They lie in order to keep their audience. They lie to keep their advertisers happy. They lie so that they can keep sucking in the money so that they can give their shareholders a return on their investment. I've been through a lot, personally, professionally, physically, and I don't say this lightly. When it comes to needing a rest, I don't mess around. And that's why I'm telling you about something that actually works. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet. It's been my go-to when I want to drop the bloat. I want to feel sharper. And yeah, I want to look like I've got my act together, even if everything else is on fire. And look, so summer's here. So maybe you want to set some goals, drop a few pounds, get your energy back, actually feel good in your own damn skin. But let's be real. Without structure and science, those goals stay wishful thinking. And that, my friends, is where Prolon comes in. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program. Soups, snacks, teas, and drinks, all designed to keep your body in fasting state while still nourishing it. That triggers deep cellular rejuvenation. Yeah, it's like the Nobel Prize winning kind that helps you target fat loss, support lean muscle, boost energy, and reset your metabolism. I mean, it's like a total internal cleanse without the starvation. And the new Prolon Next Gen, it's even better. 100% organic, richer taste, ready-to-eat meals, all developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top medical centers. I mean, this isn't just some wellness gimmick. It's the real deal. So no matter the season, when I'm craving a real rest, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's convenient, backed by Nobel-winning science, and again, it works. And now you can try the brand new Prolon Next Gen with a deal just for Mea Culpa listeners. You're going to get 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. So just visit prolonlife.com/mea culpa. That's Prolon, PROLONLIFE.com/mea culpa to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. So give your body the rest that it's been begging for and do it the right way with Prolon. Talk about an additional lie. I want to go back to Alligator Alcatraz for a second, because this immigrant detention camp thrown into the middle of the Florida Everglades, surrounded by thousands of miles of swamp, infested with literal alligators and pythons. If that in and of itself doesn't scream dystopia, I mean, if you saw this on a South Park episode, you would turn around and say, boy, those guys are really fucked up. Talk about an imagination. I truly don't know then what does. I want to ask the two of you, what was your first reaction when you heard about this?
I honestly, the Alligator Alcatraz, I thought that was a way of attacking it. I didn't realize they were putting out merch and that was their title. Like, they like it. They like it. And so my first reaction was, it's inhumane. It's a concentration camp. They are not giving people due process, and they have no remedy to get them out of detention at all, because we're not increasing the budget for the judiciary and ICE judges. We are planning on housing them. Then I see $450 million on top of the Department of Homeland Security already being there. They've slammed through their whole budget for this year. So I see a money pit, cruel and unusual punishment. And once upon a time, when I was a baby lawyer, I would have believed that the Supreme Court would intervene for good. I no longer feel that way. But I mean, I see so much dehumanizations, and I immediately thought concentration camp, we're doing the full Hitler.
I saw this and I realized, number one, this is a total authoritarian play, much like you said, in mirroring what's happening now to what happened in the lead up to World War II. Hitler identified, this is our problem. This is why you can't have nice things. They had a high inflation, similar psychological things that are going on here, geopolitical things that are going on here. This is why you can't have nice things. So authoritarians identify who to blame all your problems on and who to hate. And they start a propaganda campaign of demonizing them and also advertising the cruelty. This is on purpose. The tour with Kitten Hill's Ron DeSantis was by design for Trump to say, look, even my old adversary is with me and we're showing our base. Look at how unworthy these people are to live. And we're going to make it like a reality TV show where they have to swerve to get away from alligators. The cruelty is the point. And what bothers me, Michael, is this, and you're a Jewish man and you live with this. Hitler's gone. Anti-Semitism still lives. Trump is going to be gone. He's not a spring chicken. He's 79, about to be 80. I mean, clearly massive cognitive decline. I mean, I see it every single day. Overweight, cholesterol nightmare, all the stuff, right? So this guy's not going to live very long. But this MAGA movement is going to live, and it's infected multi-generations of cruelty that, like Pavlov's dog, they kind of get excited when they see this. And so what bothered me more when I studied World War II, I understand a crazy person in solitude that's a psychopath, that's a sociopath, that's cruel. I understand that. What bothered me about World War II were everyday Germans that got on board with it. And what bothers me about MAGA is not Trump. I understand a crazy man. He's a crazy fucking uncle you have that won't shut the fuck up at Thanksgiving. What bothers me more about MAGA are the people that go along with it. Now, the people that are completely indoctrinated in the cult, the proud MAGA people, I kind of get that a little bit. They've been left behind. They're probably raised in rural America. They're racist. They're, preachers or hellfire damnation. And there's just not a lot of critical thought. The country club Republicans that you're talking about that are too embarrassed to admit that they're triple Trumpers, that's more insidious to me, because there is a knowledge in their brain where they edit who they tell they're a Trumper to and who they tell they're not a Trumper to,
Mhm.
because they morally know it's wrong. These country club Republicans, Wall Street bros that hide it in certain circles because they know how depraved it is, that deeply concerns me, that they can see Alligator Alcatraz and not think is the demise of
Mhm.
our country.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
depraved.
just waiting for them to start putting up video cameras where you could live stream, and
Oh
then
my God, I had
if
thought about that, but you're
hypothetically,
I hadn't
right.
either,
if
but and they
hypothetically
will.
you, yeah, but just imagine if hypothetically somebody acts out. Okay, now all of a sudden, what do? Well, now they send them out into the swamp, and we follow them on camera, almost like The Running Man with Richard Dawson, that movie from years ago. But as the son of a Holocaust survivor, my dad went through that shit. From Auschwitz all the way to an internment camp that was run by the Russians. I have a problem with any of these detention camps. I don't have a problem with deporting bad people. In fact, I'm in full agreement with the president on that. You're a criminal, right? You don't belong in this country. Send them out. But I have a real problem with the disappearing of these people like at Home Depot, or a woman who just gave birth to a child, right? That's here. And all of a sudden they're shackling her to the bed, right? And, while they didn't even cut the umbilical cord, right?
Hang
They
on,
got the
Michael,
kid,
I
they
want to
got the,
say something where you said you agree with the president on deporting people that are criminals. We also have to point out the moral duplicity in which his policies live. He lets El Chapo's family and the cartels come in. So these criminals are approved, and these other criminals are denied due process. So we don't even know that they're criminals. So I think we have to be cautious to say we agree with him when his policies are wrapped in moral duplicity and hypocrisy, and there's not a streamline of his policy whatsoever when it as it
right.
pertains to
What I was
immigration.
really referring to there is, like, the MS-13 gang as an example, right? I understand the concerns people have in those communities because they are a violent gang.
Agreed. Right. But
Most
we
of them,
let
if
in
not
El
almost
Chapo.
all.
We let in El
Exactly.
Chapo's family,
By the way,
and
I'm not questioning on that one either. I'm just merely making a statement.
I agree.
I get that. But I do want to ask you that, going back to this $1 billion death swamp camp that they built. I just don't understand how this administration or any of these MAGA folk that that are supporters of this, how do you justify building this $1 billion death swamp camp? And now that I heard that DeSantis said, "Oh, we want to build a second one," while they're slashing Medicaid. I don't understand how you could justify one at the expense of the other. So I'm going to ask you: you think this is cruelty by design, or you think it's just some really twisted coincidence?
no, I think
No.
it's cruelty by design.
It's by design, and you live in the North. We live in Oklahoma, and I want to tell you, racism is the default setting for these people. And Angie and I know, because we live in white privilege circles. And when you are in a room full of white people, you hear racist things all the time, still every bit to this day. People just cover for each other. And so there is a racist default setting, especially in the South, especially in rural areas
Bible
where,
Belt.
and I think even in rural areas in the North and in California, because the wage has never been raised, and they live in the living wage has never been raised, and they live in very homogenous communities. So it's very, very easy to lean into
Hmm.
these immigrants taking things from you. And we have been a racist country from the jump. That is just the fact of America. And we started to see some, we've been moving towards reconciling that. By no means has it been completely addressed, but I would say we were moving towards reconciliation with that. And then there was a huge backlash after the Black, very organized, 99% peaceful Black Lives Matter rallies. Of course, the right only likes to talk about the 1%, but it doesn't surprise me one bit, because let me tell you, as somebody who is not religious, I'm an atheist in the Bible Belt, the evangelical Christians that I have met, and I've met hundreds of them living here my whole life, they are incredibly hypocritical and morally duplicitous and have cognitive dissonance, just like you're describing. On the one hand, they say, what would Jesus do? Jesus is my Lord and personal Savior. And on the other hand, there is this excitement and salivating over cruelty and law and order in a dramatic fashion towards minorities. And I've seen it my entire life.
Wow. Let me ask you this question. Go
Okay,
ahead.
One thing I want to say, though, is Donald Trump gets up there and everybody in his administration goes on and on about how bad these criminals are. Donald Trump is a fucking criminal. He's a convicted felon. He is a criminal. I get so tired of acting like he is always saying, well, these murderers and these criminals. I'm like, you're a fucking criminal. You don't get to say that. And so I just had to make that point. It drives me nuts.
Well, let me ask you this, because to sort of step away from that point a little, what really upset me a lot about a guy who I was so close to was when I heard him joking that maybe, and I'm going to quote, dangerous U.S. citizens should be thrown into the Everglades too. Ha ha, right? You think that's the next phase of political punishment?
He campaigned on this.
Coming from me.
He campaigned on this. This is a campaign promise, the enemy from within. This is every tweet. Merry Christmas to everybody except for the radical left thugs and Marxist losers. This is a campaign promise, because if you're MAGA, the order in which you hate people is following, like Black, immigrants, trans, gay, women, and then liberals is right up there. And all of those positions jockey all the time as to who's in the point position. But this is a campaign promise. He wants to get rid of the enemy from within. And I have bad news for the three of us on this here stream, because that would include all three of us. This is a campaign promise. He campaigned on that.
Jen, I've already been there. Let's not forget, yeah. I was already remanded back to prison because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional right. And I don't say that as, hey, this is Michael Cohen making a statement to justify, what happened to him. I'm basically citing verbatim federal court judge Alvin K. Hellerstein when he said that the reason that Michael Cohen was thrown back was retaliatory by the president, by the attorney general, because he refused to waive his First Amendment constitutional right and not publish a book that was critical of the president. I have real concerns when you make a joke like this, because I know Trump better than anybody. And the one thing that I will tell you is that Trump does not joke. He projects. And so when he turns around and he starts talking about dangerous U.S. citizens, with all due respect to the two of you, you might be on that list, but thank God a million times you're not anywhere near the top. So you're going to have some great, advance warning on what could be coming down the pike for you to get the hell out of Dodge. But there are many people who are at the top of that list, including, folks like Alvin Bragg or Tish James or Jack Smith, not to mention there's a half dozen new people, Elon Musk as an example. And you know what? While I bring up Elon Musk, let's talk about for a second about potentially the messiest billionaire breakup of the decade, right? Trump and Musk. Why do you think that Musk turned on Trump so publicly? Was it money? Was it his ego? Was it something else? Was it both? What do you think?
Hurt feelings.
Her feelings.
I think he got I was telling Pumps this at lunch. Do you remember when Sarah Palin was the nominee for John McCain?
I
And
was
then
there.
they
Yeah.
lose, and then they lose, and then she goes back to Alaska after being on the big stage, and she's governor for about 6 weeks total. And then she has an emergency press conference and she quits her job of being governor for the benefit of the state. It was some bullshit. So Elon Musk, he couldn't ever be president, but he could buy the president. And so he's Marine One, slumber parties at the White House. Trump is babysitting his son. It's high times, right? Well, everybody hates Elon Musk because nobody likes being around somebody that's high all the time. Nobody likes being around a drunk all the time, right? So they boot his ass out. And I think we have bitter party of one, your table's now available. Enter Elon Musk, and he sits down at his table, and the drip of what all he's going to bring out. I am sat. I am ready. I am living for this moment because it's so predictable. The thing about MAGA is these people are so short-sighted. Nobody ever plays the tape through. Nobody thinks 5 years from now, post-Trump, everything is just my needs right here, right now, this second.
Interesting. It's funny because I put out a post on my Substack on exactly this. It's the billionaire's ego versus the presidential wrath. And I want to be very clear, knowing Trump as well as I do, and knowing what, I used to do when I was there in that inner circle on a very different level. It wasn't political. It was more personal. It was business related. Elon Musk is going to get destroyed. And it was funny because I know that our phones listen to us, because all of a sudden in my Google search pops up about 6 weeks or so ago, 7 weeks ago, I was on MSNBC the weekend, and I predicted right around, this is before Trump even gave Elon Musk the golden key to the country. I turned around and said, that bromance is over. I think it was around the time Elon was jumping like an idiot up
Right.
and down on the stage with holding the chainsaw. Again,
Yeah.
I know Trump, and he was like, what the fuck is this moron doing? But I'm going to use him. Elon Musk's big mistake, he actually thought that he could outplay Trump. He thought he was going to trump Trump, and that doesn't happen. I'm telling you, people could say about Trump whatever they want. Oh, he's stupid, he's unread, he's this, he's that. He may be unread, but he has an animalistic sense of reading the room, reading the environment better than anybody I've ever met in my entire life. He can read a person from a block away, and it is a superpower. He's managed to use that in order to capture this MAGA group, to turn them into a cult, into a personality of one, where they are willing to do things that normal people would just not do. You cannot turn around and say the cruelty, the this, the that. He needed Elon Musk at the time. He needed Elon Musk's X platform. He was very happy to take Elon Musk's money, but Elon's big mistake is thinking that his money was going to provide him immunity from being held accountable. And the only one person that, in their own mind at least, believes that they are immune from any accountability is the president. And for whatever the reason, Elon doesn't seem to understand that you are never richer than the United States government, and you are never more powerful than the president of the United States of America, especially when you have a president like Donald J. Trump.
Who's so petty. So petty.
Yeah, I think I think you pegged it, and I think it's a really interesting thing to watch, because I think billionaires start believing that they have superpowers, because you have $400 million in the bank, and then it's like, okay, I want to make a rocket, I'm going to go to Mars. They get bored to tears. And I think that Elon really wanted to get involved in politics, and he felt like he has the hubris to think, well, I have $400 billion. I know about how to do budgets in the federal government. Let's face it, reducing the federal deficit is not sexy work. This is bean counter
Right.
boredom, and you have to have experts that like to sit and grind with numbers and policy. It is as boring as it's watching paint dry, right? This guy has the hubris to think he has that skill set because he owns Tesla and he owns Starlink. And that's going to be one of the shortcomings of all of these billionaires that went to kiss Trump's ring, the short-sighted play that they've done, and that their brand damage that's going to happen to their brands in a post-Trump America. It's going to be interesting to watch that play out too, because you can see it in a really fast loop. What happened to Musk? That's all of that's going to happen to Bezos, to they call him now MAGA Mark, and Mark Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan and he said, I'm just happy that MAGA's in power because, man, I felt like I was neutered. And I'm like, oh my God, what kind of man goes on to the largest podcast in the world and says he felt like he had been
Well,
neutered?
actually, second largest, Midas Touch Network.
Yeah,
took
that's
that
right.
one over.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yes,
congratulations
Thank
to
you
that.
for
Hey,
correcting me.
let me just ask you one last question because, as I said, the hour goes by. I could sit and bullshit with the two of you all day long, but I have a final question. I want to get each of your response to it because Trump is now, as an example, floating the idea of deporting Musk back to South Africa. I just think it's funny. As podcasters, as, I've had it podcast hosts, you guys have seen it all. Where does this rank on the insanity scale?
That's tough because I think he is becoming more and more unhinged by what he says. I mean, sending U.S. citizens to concentration camps, he's been floating that for a while. I mean, he is crazier than he's ever been. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think to date, the craziest thing I've seen him do is dance on stage for 40 minutes and not talk with Christine Nome. Like that to me was the perfect example of this guy has lost his mind. So everything, I mean, him being ugly on tweets and being a bully and, hurting people, all of that I anticipated. The surprise was this dancing on stage for 40 minutes. That's my own personal.
Oh, I can see Jen's got the wheels going. I can see the grin.
Yeah, for me, Elon Musk now possibly getting deported is the most predictable thing on the planet. When you are an immigrant and you join the political party to the tune of $300 million, and at every MAGA rally, they put up signs that say mass deportations now. And all he talked about was deporting people. And you're a fucking immigrant, at some point, those knives are going to be turned directly on you. And if you're too stupid to figure that out and you write $300 million worth of checks because you think you're the exception in the middle of all of these fucking racists, you deserve to get deported. I mean, come on. The Latinos for Trump. I don't want these people to suffer. I genuinely don't. But if you join the racists and you think you're the exception, you're not. At some point, they're going to turn the knives on Scott Bessent, the gay guy at the Treasury Department. What does he think? He's the most special, extraordinary gay man on the planet. Once Project 2025 gets all their anti-gay stuff going in, Scott, you're going to be out too. It's just a very short-sighted play by these people that betray the people that they should be fighting for. So I think it's so predictable that Elon Musk is going to have to pack up his toys and move. But I don't think he'll go back to South Africa. I bet he goes over to Russia and hangs out with Putin.
Yeah,
that's very possible. Jenn, Pumps, so good to see both of you. It's been a while. Miss you both. Thank you for joining me here on Mea Culpa again. Hope to see both of you very, very soon because we have a lot to do.
A lot to do.
We love you, Michael Cohen.
Thank you for having
so
us.
much.
Great seeing you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.